This video features the use of dangerous tools, hazardous chemicals and sharp knives. Viewer discretion is advised.
There's a bomb on the turntable. If I'm quick, I'll save the railway from certain doom. Oh no! That's Andy Diesel's shed! I'll never stop in time! Oh no! Help! Crikey! Not me! I can't stop! Ah! Oh, phew. Oh, you alright, old boy? Oh, yes. Just a dream. Good, good. Looks like rain's on its way. Maybe we'll get lucky today. I don't think I'm ready for the rain again. Oh, this is horrible. I can't wait until I'm back home in my nice warm shed. What has happened here? I best go back and warn the others.
Huh! What are you doing here? And what is that smell?
It's the fish! And there's danger on the rails. That's why we're late.
Huh! You're the only danger on the rails, Thomas. Now stop wasting my time.
You're the danger on the line, actually.
Good one, Thomas.
What route is Henry taking tonight?
The cliffside route. You'll have to wait now.
No, you can't. The cliffs have collapsed.
What?
Poor Henry. I hope he's back soon. He'll be alright. Tomorrow's a new day, and it's meant to be a lot nicer. Oh, I do love the summer. Bright blue sky and lovely green grass. What a wonderful day. Oh, indeed, Thomas.
Ugh, it's too bad. Percy goes to work in the harbour and now I have to take his trucks to the quarry. I have had enough. Take that.
Oh! Just you wait. We'll show you.
Oh, Duck! Oh, thank goodness you're here, my hero. I feel so terribly ill. I don't think I can pull this train. Please help me. Don't try that with me, James. Now, be careful. Those trucks will play tricks if you treat them like that. Pah! What do you know?
Cheer up, James. It's a beautiful day.
Oh, Thomas, not for me. Oh, I feel dreadful.
I'm sorry to hear that. What's the matter?
I don't know. Oh, something. I feel dreadful.
Don't worry. I can help out if you're ill. You'll feel much better after a rest. We couldn't pay James back for bumping us, so we'll play tricks on Thomas instead. One engine is as good as another. Why won't these points work? Because I haven't fixed them yet. Now's a chance! Bump him! Bump him! Whoa, whoa! Slow down! Slow down! Whoa! Oh dear.
So why were you pulling James's tricks?
Poor James was ill. I thought
Ill? He's not ill. He's pulled the fast one on you, Thomas. Don't worry, he'll get what's coming to him.
Oh, I hope so. You are a very naughty engine. You will shunt trucks until you learn to behave.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Sir, I'm feeling a little under the weather. On second thoughts, I think I'll be okay.
Your colour's nice, James. Pity about your face, though. We best be careful, James. The weather's getting worse.
Make way for an important engine.
It's Thomas! Don't worry, James. I'm here to help. I'm ready.
So am I! As ready as I'll ever be! Thank you for rescuing me, Thomas.
Oh, that's all right. I'm not saying that you deserve to fall off a cliff, or that the tree should have fallen on you. But despite how rude some of us are to one another, we engines must pull together, whatever the weather. Firstly, I want to give a huge thank you to the positive reception for the Mad Bomber recreation. I'm extremely grateful for all of the feedback, both positive and constructive. This video was a lot of fun to make and it was great to have some help on this one too. This random man walked into my studio and started helping out on the set. I did confront him, but he didn't back down. He seemed to know what he was doing though, so I let him crack on. Turns out he has a YouTube channel too, Thomas the Tank Man 111. And he's also just released a new song. You can find links to both in the description. For those who don't know, The Mad Bomber is a Thomas the Tank Engine video created by Leokim Video in the early 2000s. I remember absolutely adoring this video when I was younger. You can find a link to the original Mad Bomber video in the description below. To start, James and I set to work building the yard set. The majority of the surface is MDF board, but this section at the end was made from plasterboard. This meant I could draw around the turntable and cut a hole for it to sit in. It didn't go to plan immediately, but we got there in the end. We used wooden beams to give some buildings a little bit more height, and we hid these with retaining walls. We then continued to add a variety of tracks to build up the yard. We didn't necessarily have a set plan, we just put down tracks and kept what we thought looked good. The usual sky I use is made of polyester, which can be washed, steamed and stretched. The grey sky, however, is a large card printout, which over time has become quite creased and torn. In time, I'd like to replace it, but my budget can't quite stretch there at the moment. So we hung this using clamps at the top. I then nailed in the tracks before adding the ballast. The trackside lights were achieved by wiring the lamps to battery packs underneath the table. I tend to use Woodland Scenic's ballast. I prefer a much darker shade though, so I add a small amount of black weathering powder and give it a good shake. It does make it dustier, so you need to be more attentive when cleaning the tracks, but I love the look it gives. We then tested Thomas to make sure the tracks were cleaned and ready. We then gave the table a little clear out as we'd accumulated a lot of stuff while building. That way we'd have a clearer workspace for filming. We then set up our lights to give that atmospheric stormy night look. We also had an extra bright light which would be flashed intermittently for the lightning effect. The mist was achieved by using a fog machine, a tube, and then a very cold damp cloth at the end to cool down the mist and let it settle on the set. We kept putting this cloth back in the fridge when not in use, as the fog would heat it up. We then got to work filming the short. Some shots required creative wiring, as we didn't have quite enough wire to stretch to the turntable. There is sometimes quite a process to get the frame looking exactly as we want it, but we get there eventually. We had to move the table round to get various different angles so that the sky was always at the back. The lights then also had to be moved to keep consistent lighting throughout. Points are always a pain, as ballast gets stuck in the gaps and dust prevents the metal switches from touching. We always get it cleaned in the end though. The lights in Andy's shed were interesting. We literally just stuffed some fairy lights at the back to illuminate the shed. Although Thomas is DCC, for some odd reason I forgot to wire his lamps, or perhaps was rushing. This meant I needed to power his lamps using a battery pack. This meant we had to be clever with the camera angles so you couldn't see the battery pack. While the sparks were a digital effect, the explosions were real. I won't go into the details of how I made these for safety reason, but I will share the fact that Andy was not in his shed at the time of the explosion. I digitally composited him in using a variety of different stills of Andy with progressively brighter lighting until he disappeared entirely. Trust Thomas is the 13th episode from the third series, which was first released in 1991. Part of this episode is loosely based on a magazine story written by none other than Andrew Brenner, called Bertie's Bumpy Road. The other part of the episode, which involves Gordon, James, and Thomas, is likely based on the plot of Trucks from the Railway series. Due to the fact I don't have any faceplates for my Bertie and I haven't quite yet completed my Gordon model, I decided to adapt this story without those parts, and I increased Duck's role as well, just for a bit of fun. The crash in this episode is superb. It's always an added bonus when there is some water to play with. I knew that a key component I'd need for this recreation was the jetty, so I set about creating that first. I started by finding a piece of track that I could use atop the jetty. I found a short piece that was from an old Hornby turntable pack that would be perfect. I based my build around this piece of track. The jetty was made from balsa wood. I glued the track onto a small square base. I then cut up lots of small wooden beams out of thin balsa, which would then be wooden planks. I then painted the inside in case it was ever seen. I glued these strips along the base until they covered the track ties. I made the metal posts at the front out of balsa wood as well. Once complete, I made a simple brown wash and covered the wood. By using a wash, I was able to keep the wood grain and texture visible, and I used a variety of shades and dilutions to give each plank a unique look and make it feel more weathered. I painted the metal posts grey and then weathered them with orange weathering powder to give the metal effect. I also made the buffers for this crash out of balsa wood, but I forgot to use them in the video. I can always save them for later. The first set was the countryside set, and in this particular shot it's where the trucks bump Thomas, and you can see how long some of these shots can take to get. Believe me, this is only a small portion. For the pond set, I adapted the set I already had, so I separated these tracks to add the points, which would lead to the pond. I added wooden blocks beneath to raise the track to the same level as the track I already had. I used the lid of one of these really useful boxes as the water. I knew it didn't need to be very deep. I painted the rim brown and covered it with Woodland Scene's grass, just that you wouldn't see the plastic. I painted the inside of the rails orange to give them that rusty look. I then used a track rubber to wipe away the excess paint. I then got about completing the set, adding buildings and bushes. Because I'm using one of these really useful box lids, and I don't know how secure it will be with the water, I decided to wait until I actually needed the water before pouring it in. Once the workmen were in place, I was ready to start filming. Once I'd completed the lead up, it was time for the pond. I used a load of acrylic brown paint so that when the water was poured in, I could mix it together and the water would have that thick brown texture so that you wouldn't see the plastic underneath. I added plenty more bushes and shrubs all around the plastic again so you just wouldn't see that edge. And then it was time to film again. Once complete, the first step is to just get rid of that water safely as possible so that is not causing any more trouble. I could then set up for the last scene to film. Then it's time to pack away the set. I have all of these plastic tubs for the different types of shrubs, flowers and bushes, so that I can keep them organised and separate so that I can use them again later. I pour the truck's loads into the quarry dust tub. I remove the tracks and try to save as much of the ballast as possible. You're always going to lose some, you'll never get it all back, but you can try and get most of it. Then these grass mats can be rolled away. The brand for these is Mini Nature. I then unscrew these wooden beams that I use to raise the track for the embankment countryside set. Then it's a case of sweeping away all the rest of the dirt, storing what can be saved, and getting the track out for the next set. For this one, I'm building the yard. I clean the tracks and make sure that they're working for the trains before applying any ballast. Some of these tracks are pinned down as well. Sometimes I have to use isopropyl alcohol just to get a good clean on the tracks, especially points because they tend to cause a lot of trouble. Then I go about adding more buildings, the background grass, and eventually the ballast. Once the set's in a pretty good place, I'll then get the camera out to see how it looks in frame and make any final adjustments and tweaks where necessary. And then I can get the shot. I'd usually do this before placing the track, but I then drill holes in the board so that smoke can be funneled for under the engines. Hello everyone. Thank you for all of your kind feedback on the James and the Trouble with Trees recreation. It was great fun getting to work with practical rain again, and I've had plenty of practice while working on Oliver's cliffside collapse. For this video, I started by laying out all of the track I needed for the hillside country set. I knew I wanted to make this slightly curvy, so I used the flexi track to achieve this. I used the Pico bullhead track, which I think looks very realistic. At the ends of the long stretch, I used regular Hornby curved pieces to make it appear as though the tracks continue beyond. I used these large artificial grass mats, which are used for gardens, as the base shape for my hills. I screw them in at the front to stop them from moving, and since they're so bulky, they hold their shape quite nicely. I tend to not leave this grass exposed, at least especially not near the camera, as it's not very finely detailed, but since it is green, it's a great base layer just in case. I then cover these hills with more detailed grass mats, the majority of which are by a company called Mini Nature. I then use Woodland Scenics turf of varying thicknesses to cover the exposed wood and blend the grass mats. I add Woodland Scenics ballast to the tracks, which has been made a slightly darker shade by blending it with black weathering powder. I start to add more bushes to build up the scenery and map out where the falling tree will be on the set. To make sure the tracks are clean and working properly, I give James a little test run. Then it was time to set up for the first shot. I don't have enough scenery to cover the entire set all at once, so I set up the camera and make sure I have that specific frame covered in terms of scenery. As I'm using rain, I didn't want to get my camera wet, so I covered it with bubble wrap. I like my camera angles to be as low as possible, as though they could be filmed on a real railway, so I try to avoid these higher placed shots as best I can, unless necessary to understand a story beat. For this scene, however, it could be argued they're taken from the hillside, hence the higher camera. I also wanted James to feel a little more vulnerable and surrounded. I continued that closing in feeling, with the trees getting closer and more present, building up to the falling tree. The moving ground for the tree was made from sand and soil, covered with Woodland Scenic turf. The tree was controlled by using a wooden skewer glued to the bottom. I have to be creative with the moving shots, and I use 2 flatbeds to carry the camera. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes video. Please let me know what you'd like to see next.